Hi and welcome back to BookTube with Amy. This is going to be my end of the month wrap up and my stats. We've got coffee, we've got donuts, and we're just going to sit and chill and chat about books. First of all, I just want to apologise for missing an upload, I guess. I didn't do my wrap up before I went on my holiday, and I should have done, but I didn't. Work has just been like very heavy. I do a retail gig, you know, so as you can imagine, retail management this time of year is crazy because Christmas is just another beast. We have been prepping and planning since August for Christmas, and it's just been a bit erratic, and you know, we have been hit a lot earlier than usual in terms of busyness, in terms of people really trying to get the most out of their money and, you know, get a good deal because of the cost of living crisis and everything that's going on, and we're just sort of unprepared, I guess, for how early it hit this year. So it's just been a lot, and you know, also we have had Simon's dad living with us, so it's been a wee bit difficult to come home and just like get the time to sit down and film, like compared to how it usually would be. You know, Simon's working in the library, so if I'm on a day off but Simon's got loads of calls, I kind of come through and film and get a catch up with you guys. And you know, I did film a wrap up before I went away on holiday, or I started to film a wrap up before I went away on holiday, and I was just like, nah. I felt like I wasn't myself, and it was just sort of feel like quite rushed, quite to the point, and it just didn't feel like me, so I decided I wasn't going to put it out, and I just put a wee message up in my community tab to let you guys know that I would be back today with my wrap up for the last couple of weeks of the month, because I just didn't want to put out a video that felt subpar or felt like it was rushed or that I wasn't enjoying myself. And you know, I really wanted to just take my holiday while I was away to chill and relax, spend a lot of time with Simon because we've not had a lot of time together recently, and I just sort of shut off a wee bit. So I didn't really want to take my laptop and like edit and stuff while I was away. We did film while we were away though, so if you are interested to see a wee bit more of our holiday and how that went, you'll need to stay tuned for my next Try That Trope vlog next week. But it was great. It was exactly what we needed. I'm feeling very refreshed and ready just to sit down and hang out with you guys and chat about what I've been reading. So the first book I want to talk to you guys about is Doll Bones by Holly Black. So I read this as part of Jess from Lady Lovestead Reads' Middle Grade Appreciation Society. This was the October pick, and this has sparked like a whole interest in creepy, cookie, spooky middle grade for me, to be honest. It has been all I've been adding to my wish list. I have been purchasing a couple of them, and it's just something that I have never really delved into before other than when I was a kid, and so I'm looking for something that is going to be really cute, really creepy, and just give me sort of the nostalgia vibes, because I was really into like Goosebumps and Creepers and Point Horror and all that stuff when I was younger. And so I was really excited going into this. I have never read anything other from Holly Black other than the Folk of the Air trilogy, which I read earlier this year and I thoroughly enjoyed. So I was very excited to see how she would do in a middle grade. And creepy, haunted dolls are like one of my favourite horror tropes, so this just seemed like the perfect one to start with. I was so excited to get it read, and I started it before anybody else did in the group. It hit like midnight on October 1st and I was like, starting this book. Fortunately it just didn't live up to the hype for me. So there was a couple of things that were missing, but first of all I'm going to talk about what I really did like. I really liked the characters in here. I felt like they were very likeable, and I really enjoyed their like wee friendship trio. I think that that's something that always shines out from middle grades for me, is just like how great the friendships are, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I really liked a lot of the coming of age type chat in here, and you know, the chat around when are you too old to be, you know, enjoying the things that you are interested in? Because like that especially touched my heart, because like I'm gonna be 30 next year, and let me tell you, I still love my PlayStation, and I will just like, you know, tell Simon to bugger off for a wee while and buy snacks and play Skyrim for like 48 hours without moving for the one spot. And I obviously read a lot of YA, and you know, I think there can be a wee bit of snobbery around that, you know, like, oh well, they're books that are meant for kids, and so I sort of really resonated with those aspects of it, although it doesn't delve into it too much. But what I didn't enjoy is there just wasn't enough creepy doll. You know, I thought like we were going to have like quite scary scenes. I wasn't expecting her to go like full Chucky and to be murdering people or whatever, because like it's a middle grade, I get that. But I was expecting it to be a wee bit more creepy than it was. Like anytime the doll moved or anytime anything happened with the doll, it was when the kids were asleep, so they weren't really experiencing it. And although they were sort of creeped out in the aftermath, like, oh shit, what happened, like it didn't really creep them out to a huge extent, and so therefore me as a reader also wasn't very creeped out, so I just felt like it missed the creepy mark for me. And then there were a couple of comments in here and a couple of themes that I just didn't enjoy. So our friendship group is made up of 2 girls and a boy, and the boy obviously fancies one of the girls in the friendship group because it's impossible for the opposite sexes to just be pals, and the other lassie is a wee bit jealous about it, and I just felt like that whole plot was like detracting a wee bit for their friendship, and I didn't really enjoy that, and I didn't really understand why that other girl needed to be jealous when, you know, she didn't have these feelings for the guy. And the comments that made me feel uncomfortable were around the girl that he fancied, and you know, it was just comments around her body, and while I totally appreciate maybe wanting, you know, to express that somebody's growing up and, you know, girls' bodies change during puberty, that happens, I get that, but like maybe there's another way that we can talk about that, as opposed to it just being like, oh, and the boys are noticing her body's change, she's got curves now. Like I just, like what? She's 12, let's no be. I just really didn't like that. And then our main character, his dad in this, is a total prick. But I feel like we didn't really get any resolution with his dad. His dad was just very abusive and controlling, and then like nothing happens with that storyline. So I just feel like none of the themes in here were pushed far enough for them to have made a real point or to have made an impact, and that just detracted from the book a bit. And you know, like the main plot of the book, I feel like if Holly Black maybe focused more on that and we took away some of this other stuff, then like we could have maybe had a better book out yet. So this was a 3-star for me. It was a very quick read, it was middle of the road, it was enjoyable, I liked the characters, I liked the plot, but it just fell pretty short for where it was in my head. I had hyped this up something awful. Next, I want to talk about House of Shadows by Pamela Hartshorn. So I started this while we were on holiday, and I DNF'd this, unfortunately. This was one of my shelf-destruct books so far for the year, and I don't even know where I DNF'd it. Where did I get to? Got to chapter 14, so page 164. So it was quite a wee chunk into the book before I decided to DNF it. This is about a woman, and she has an accident which causes her to have like short-term memory loss, and so she can't remember her life, she can't remember anything, she can't even remember her son, but she starts getting like thoughts and feelings about her body and about her past that aren't hers, and they belong to the mistress who owned the house that she's currently living in, like however many years previous. And I just really didn't enjoy it. It was quite a slow build. Like in those pages that I read, like pretty much nothing really had happened, other than we know she had the accident. We didn't really know what really happened, and there's a lot of her just sort of finding her feet. And this is my thing with historical fiction as well, right, is I quite like historical fiction. I really enjoy that setting. I am obsessed with like the Victorian era, and so I really like that sense of grandeur. It's cool if it's a wee bit steampunky, like my jam or the back. But with a lot of historical fiction, I feel like there's so much build up and there's so much description to really solidify the time that they're in, that they focus a lot less on plot. And unfortunately that's what happened for me with this book. Our main character as well, like, I really did like her in theory. So she doesn't really know who she is, and so she only really knows who she is for things that other people have been telling her. And apparently she was like very feisty, very opinionated, wasn't very well liked by her in-laws who she's currently staying with, and she wasn't the suitable partner that they saw their son marrying because of how opinionated she is. Like, excellent, I love her, I love a strong opinionated woman. I mean, could I know, come on. But we didn't really get to see her, for what I read, be that strong opinionated woman, because she didn't really know who she was. But that's all anybody would say about her. And it just became a wee bit tedious, because I was like, right, okay, like, I get she doesn't remember, but she can remember things that are happening now, so surely she'd have opinions on things that are happening now, like, if she is so opinionated. Like, she maybe doesn't have her previous opinions, but she can form new opinions. Like, why is that not happening? So aye, that was a wee bit annoying, and it was just very slow, and I just couldn't commit to finishing the rest of the book. The allure of the mystery and finding out what happened, like, wasn't enough to keep me reading. I haven't looked up how this ends, because I frankly don't care, but I can 1000% guarantee that her in-laws tried to kill her because they wanted custody of her son, because, like, her husband has died, their son, and so they'll want full custody of the grandson to get her out of the way. And, you know, it's obviously no work, she's still alive, but she's now getting the memories and the feelings and the emotions of the person who lived in the house before her. Can probably bet you that something similar happened to her, and, you know, that's why they have this relationship and why she's getting all these thoughts and feelings. Boring. It just wasn't worth me finishing it, so it was a DNF. And I'll be unhauling this also. We might as well talk about the other DNF while we're here. So I actually read this one before we went away, and that is The End of Everything by Megan Abbott. I did a tag recently, which is the why haven't I read those books yet tag, and this book was flagged as being the oldest book on my TBR, and it was on my shelf destruct TBR, so I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's pick it up. This was awful, and this review is going to be pretty graphic, so, you know, just be warned. I can't promise you that I will not swear and shout my head off, because this book is fucking gross and I can't believe it's sold. Strong themes of child abuse, strong themes of being an absolute nonce. Be warned. So I picked this up thinking it was going to be like a cute queer wee coming age story. Two teenage girls, one goes missing, the other girl needs to try and help the police and her family find out what's happened to her pal, and I thought she was going to realise that she had feelings for her pal, because it talks about two young girls discovering their sexuality, so I thought it was going to be really cute, you know, they'd maybe have a wee kiss, they'd maybe hold hands, you know, or maybe the other one wouldn't be queer, but, you know, the queer one would just realise that she had feelings and would maybe come out to her pal, and it would be adorable and lovely. That is certainly not what this book is about. It was a shock to me, I'll tell you. So, yes, two best friends, one goes missing, the other one needs to help the police, you know, find out what has happened. There is so much talk about children in here that is like humongously uncomfortable. So these two girls are 14, I believe they are 14. They're actually 13. So, two 13-year-old girls, right? And this book is for the perspective of the girl who hasn't went missing. I don't even remember her name. Lizzie. So it's for the perspective of Lizzie. And we go into quite a lot of detail about Lizzie being 13 and discovering her body and learning to masturbate. Now, I get that that happens. Fine. Everybody wanks. But do I really need to read quite a graphic scene about a 13-year-old discovering how to make herself come? I probably don't. Do I then need to read several scenes about a 13-year-old girl who is in love with her best friend's dad and talking about how she would at times pretend to be upset so that he would comfort her and she derived some sort of like sexual connection from that? Probably not. Probably not. Do I need to hear about the same 13-year-old girl talk about her best friend's 13-year-old body and, you know, talking about her boobs and her arse and how other boys are fancying her and, you know, talk about how they might have sex with boys? I probably don't, because they're actually 13. And there was just a lot of that in here, a lot of that, which I really didn't enjoy, and it actually made me feel very uncomfortable to be reading this. And I downloaded the audiobook as well, so like I was listening to it at some points, and I was like, see if anybody walked into a room right now and heard what I was listening to, they'd get the police on me, like for sure would. It was disgusting. The dad also, now, he never touches for what I read, right? Didn't finish the book obviously, so we don't know. But for what I read, he doesn't touch this 13-year-old girl inappropriately at all. Like, she has a total like desire for him and that is in her head. But what I didn't like for the dad is he has an older teenage daughter. I don't remember her age, but you know, she's dating, so she's at that age. And he had a conversation with this daughter that made me feel very uncomfortable. So, in my family, we're pretty open. We chat, we joke about sex, right? It's fine. It's nothing that's taboo, you know, like, it's grand. My granny is like the filthiest human on the planet. So, like, you know, we're used to it. It's fine. But we never spoke about sex in the way like how it's spoken about in this book. The older teenage daughter goes on a date with a guy and she comes back in for the date and the dad's like, hoi oi, like, how did that go? And she's like, oh aye, like, it was fine, blah blah blah. He tried to kiss me, like, and he didn't have a clue what he was doing. And he was like, oh, what? Like, he took you out for dinner and like, you know, he doesn't outright say he took you for dinner and you didn't even give the boy his hole. But like, that's the implication. And she's like, oh, I know, I'm terrible, haha. And he's like, I raised you better than that. And I'm like, what kind of like, even as a joke, right? Like, young teenage girls are impressionable and you are their male father figure. Like, why is that even a joke that is happening in your household? Like, that was just really bizarre to me. Really bizarre to me. And like, me and my dad have a great relationship and we are close. Like, I'm married and my dad wouldn't even say that. You know what I mean? Like, like, just bizarre. Really bizarre. I didn't enjoy it. And I decided I was doing the audio and I thought the audiobook's very short. It's only a few hours long. So I was like, right, I had done a wee bit of it. So I was like, I must be like so far into this by now. And I think I only got up to chapter 8. So page 62, which like is not that far into it. And I was like, I can't force myself to listen to the rest of this based on what I have listened to so far, because it was just making me too uncomfortable. I really didn't enjoy it. Like, Megan Abbott is 1000% sexualising children. Let's no pretend like she isn't. She is. You know, there is no need for this book to be as graphic as it is. No need at all. Especially for it being such a short fucking book. Like, just focus on your plot. Focus on your plot. Anyway. So I decided to DNF it at that point, that I wasn't going to read any more, but I thought I'll check out some reviews and, you know, I'll see what people are saying about it. Maybe like there's a drastic shift in tone or something, like a drastic shift in subject matter, and it could maybe become bearable. I'll often do that when I'm pondering DNF in a book. I'll have a wee read through the reviews and decide whether or not it's something for me. The reviews of this book are glowing. Like, absolutely glowing. they are like praising Megan Abbott for writing such an edgy, dark, twisted thriller. And I'm like, are you reading the same book as me? And like, I think that this needs to be a conversation that happens within the bookish community, because I've read a few thrillers this year that have been written by women where I have felt like they are sexualising children, and I go to Goodreads or other review sites and nobody else has picked up on what I have. But there are some common buzzwords that are used around these thrillers that sexualise children, and they are often, you know, edgy, dark, twisted. Like, I'm sorry, but being a nonce isn't edgy. Like, it's not in any way acceptable, and I think that we really need to define what we are willing to accept and not accept for authors when it comes to how they talk about children. Like, this book is disgusting. Really disgusting. Like, I can't wait to unhaul this. Like, I have felt uncomfortable that several times on my channel have I spoken about this book. Like, and other people might have picked this book up because I was like, oh, I think it's going to be a cute queer wee story, when it isn't. Like, it's absolutely vile. And I don't think that any amount of description, like, is saying that it's edgy or dark or twisted, like, is alright. Like, I'm sorry, it's no. Like, an edgy thriller to me is something that is like really like bringing something fresh to the game. It's maybe got like a lot of really good social commentary in it. Like, you know, maybe the characters are morally grey and so you didn't really know whose side you're on. Like, that's an edgy thriller to me. This isn't an edgy thriller. Isn't an edgy thriller. So I DNF'd it, and I did look up how this ends, and it turns out that the lassie who went missing didn't actually go missing at all. She ran away with her teacher, her grown-ass male teacher, who she has been sort of flirting with and seeing on the side, who used to come to her bedroom to watch her. She knew he was there, and she enjoyed it. Because she was sick of fighting for the attention of her dad with her older sister, and that is the crux of the book. Absolutely gross, and what a terrible message to send to female readers. Megan Abbott, you should be ashamed of yourself. Disgusting. Let's move on with my life. So, on to some better books, right? I read You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca. I was super excited to get to this and to pick it up after reading Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, because I have not been able to get that book out of my brain since I read it. This one, unfortunately, didn't live up to the same standard for me. It was enjoyable, I did enjoy it, and there were bits of it that were, I mean, in fact, no, I didn't even find this book all that gross, to be honest. There was nothing in here that turned my stomach or made my brain pop in the same way as Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. This one just felt a wee bit lacklustre to me. I didn't connect with the characters in the same way as I did in the other book, and I felt like the way that this one was split up was really odd. So it is like, you'll get maybe like a recording of a conversation between our two main characters, and you'll get that, and then there'll be like a poem for one of your main characters, and then you'll get like a segment for one of his short stories that he's written, and you'll get a few chapters of that, and then it just follows that same pattern all the way through. Whereas I feel for me it would have been far better if I maybe had all the conversations all up front at once, and then I knew exactly what had went on and what was happening, and then like we could have went through the main character's body of work. Like, I understand the whole point of it is because like as his work was escalating, so was his crimes, and you know, like, I'm going to spoil this. So it turns out he was stealing people's work, so they weren't actually his stories. And so like you can sort of see the tone and the style shift slightly in the chapters depending on who our main character has recently killed. And it's obviously because he's been stealing their work. And so like I think that that's interesting in the way that it's done. But it just felt a wee bit jarring at times. Like I'd maybe really get into your main character storyline and really want to know what was happening, and then I'd need to suffer 3 pages of a fucking short story. Like 3 chapters of a short story, and I'm like, can we just get back to that please, because that's a lot more interesting than me right now. And then likewise though, when I'd be getting into the short story, I'd then be like pushed back into the main storyline, and I'd be like, oh, but I kind of want to find out what happens. So I just didn't enjoy this one as much. This was a 3-star read for me. I'm still glad that I have read it, and I'm certainly going to pick up more Eric LaRocca's work in the future, but this was just pretty middle of the road for me. And then I read Woman Eaten by Claire Coda, and I did this as a buddy read with Becca from Read Becca, and I'm so glad we buddy read this together because this was just a phenomenal book to like talk to somebody about. It was so interesting. So this is like vampire literary fiction, which was so fucking cool, like especially for somebody like me who's like only really starting to get into literary fiction. Like the fact there was like a wee vampire element thrown in there, I was like, oh, like this is so cool. I really loved it. This is just such an interesting book. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience of reading it. I feel like every single chapter really delves into a new theme, and I feel like the way that it's written with the vampire tropes is so interesting. Like if you take typical vampire tropes like isolation, you know, your main character does isolate herself in this, but for different reasons than why a normal vampire would isolate themselves. You know, when you think about the relationship in a lot of vampire fiction between the maker and you know, the vampire, you know, you think you are really controlling relationship sometimes. You think maybe, you know, a very sexual relationship sometimes. You think of like a really nurturing relationship sometimes, depending on where you're pulling your sources from. And then here, like, it was almost subverted because the mum in this, the mum vampire, she has dementia and she's in a care home. And so, you know, the baby vampire in here is needing to look after her mum and learn to look after herself for the first time. That juxtaposed with the fact that, you know, people of her age are just going out to uni and work for the first time, and so a lot of people in real life are also dealing with these things, was just phenomenal, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like this was one of the most interesting books that I have read this year, and I feel like it touched on a lot of brilliant themes in here. A lot of themes around nature nurture, a lot of themes around like your relationship with your parents and the level of control that they have on you in your life and how they use that. A lot of topics around eating disorders and controlled eating. Just a range of topics. My main criticism of this book for me is that I felt like it didn't push a lot of those topics far enough. Like we just scratched the surface almost, and then like we would move on to something else. Like, and it was so interesting and there was so much packed into this book, but I feel like it could have been twice the length and we could have really delved into some of these topics a lot more than we did. I feel like the ending of the book is just like, boom, that's us, we're finished. Whereas like the ending of the book for me felt like a halfway point. Like we should have definitely had the rest of the novel where our main character learned how she wanted to nourish herself, and you know, we should have seen that through. And there was a lot of things that was left unanswered for me and for Becca as well when we were talking about it. So unfortunately it just didn't hit the 5-star mark for me because of that. So this is a 4-star read, but thoroughly interesting. I think that if you are a fantasy fan or a literary fiction fan, then you'll probably enjoy this because it marries so well. And you know, I think if you're a fantasy fan, then you're going to pick up all the, you know, the vampire tropes that they've put into like everyday situations, and if you're a literary fiction fan, then you're going to pick up all of those themes and see how it relates to vampires. And it was just very interesting. I really did enjoy it, and I hope that Claire Coda writes a sequel, Women Still Eating, because like I need to read that immediately. It was so good, and we just had some amazing conversations over the back of this book. I think like when we both picked this up, we knew it was going to be pretty interesting, but I didn't think like that we would be talking about the subjects that we ended up talking about just for this book. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. No of the characters were likeable. I didn't feel like all the characters were very well developed, but our main character was, and she really pulled the storyline through. I really enjoyed it. So let's head over and see what my stats are for the month. There is a couple of books that I read while I was away on holiday that I'm not mentioning in this wrap up, because I read 2 books for my Try That Trope series, and then I read a book with Simon where I'm going to post a separate video about that that's filmed as well. So these are going to be my stats for October. So in October I read 4 books by male authors and 5 books by female authors. I read 8 books by white authors and 1 book by a BAME author. 3 books that I read were queer and 6 books that I read were not. I feel like that's the biggest split we've had between queer and non-queer books. So then about the books, so I read mainly horror. Is that a surprise? So I read 5 horror books in the month of October. I read 2 crime thriller books in the month of October. I read 1 middle grade and 1 paranormal romance. So what I read in October definitely dropped. So 4 of the books that I read were standalones, which made up 44% of my reading, and 5 of my books were series, which makes up 56% of my reading, which I'm very pleased about. So then if we split it up by rating, so the white authors that I read from, I rated their books 3.13, and then BAME authors books that I read this month, I rated them 3, so no huge difference there. In gender, the female authors that I read this month, I rated 3.2, and then the male authors that I read this month, I rated 3, so again, no huge disparity there. Again, we have this disparity in the queer and non-queer though. So the queer books that I read this month, I rated 3.67, whereas the non-queer books I read were 2.83. So last month and this month we saw the biggest jump there between the books that are queer and not that I rate. I rated my standalones 3.25 and I rated my series 3 stars this month. It's the first time I think the standalones have rated higher than the series. For paranormal romance, I rated my paranormal romance reads this month a 5-star. They are Sicky Stackhouse, as we know. I rated my horror reads 3.2. My middle grades 3 and my crime thrillers 2, which I think is fair considering that is like my least loved genre. So then if we talk a wee bit about my DNFs, so I DNF'd 2 books by white authors this month. I DNF'd 2 books by female authors. They were both non-queer books. They were both standalones. One was a crime thriller and one was a historical fiction. So page counts this month. So this month I read 2,982 pages, which is significantly less than last month, but that is fair. Last month I really had a huge push on my reading. Last month I think was like the highest I had ever managed to read, and I'm unsure that I will top that getting into the busiest period for work. So that takes my all-time total up to 30294, which is absolutely fantastic, which brings out my average all-time to about 309 pages per book. The World is still my longest book I have read so far this year. None of the books that I have read this month have made it into my top 10 longest so far. So they're my stats for the month, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed them. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your patience. I know this video will be a wee bit longer than my normal wrap-ups because it is a couple of weeks worth of reading and I have ranted pretty heavily, but just needed a wee bit of a break. I'm feeling so much better and I'm so glad to be back chatting to yous. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!